Moving on to Human Services, the first item on the list under Human Services is the Adamsport subsidy. Councilman Greenspan, do you have a motion?
Mr. Chair, thank you. Surprise, surprise. I wish to defer the subsidy, $1.5 million in 2012 and $750 in 2013 to the mid-year budget review process.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilman Greenspan, seconded by Councilman Gallagher. Is there any discussion? No discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Calling the roll, Mr. Rogers?
No.
Ms. Simon? Okay. Mr. Greenspan?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
No.
Mr. Brady?
No.
Mr. Germana?
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Schron?
Yes.
Ms. Conwell?
No.
Mr. Jones?
No.
Ms. Conley?
No.
The nays have it.
The vote count, Ms. Clerk? 4-6? 4-6. Okay. Okay. And on this item, the administration proposed to reduce the subsidy by $1 million in 2012 and $250,000 in 2013.
So move.
And the question I would have is, okay, well, we'll take that as a motion. Is there a second? No second? Okay. Second, okay. The motion is the administration's proposal to reduce the subsidy by $1 million in 2012 and $250,000 in 2013, which would bring it to $500,000 above what was originally proposed by the administration. Any discussion?
Just that the administration is, by making this recommendation, is indicating that it's still $500,000 above. There was only, I believe, 2 people that sit on this 11-person council that recommended a number above that. And so therefore, it seems to me to be in keeping that this council would support that.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if this motion fails, then what do we have?
If this motion fails, then the language that's currently in the substitute version would hold, which is that in the first year in 2012, it's $1.5 million above what was originally proposed, and in the second year, it's higher by $750,000.
Mr. Chairman, does the, at least my opinion of reading the county executives, is the risk that by voting against this is you run the risk that the entire line item would be vetoed out, and you'd have a line item veto, which means you'd have 0 additional.
Mr. Chair, do we override that veto with a supermajority?
We could, but not with a simple majority. It takes eight votes, a super majority of 8 votes. I'm hoping that it's not going to come to that. We're talking about a difference of a couple tenths of a percentage point in the total spending on the budget. So I'm hoping that's not going to happen.
That's why I was supporting this change, so that you can avoid that altogether. You still have a $500,000 increase. You increase it more than what 9 of us had already in our early recommendations had, and so I think you can get the best of both worlds.
Mr. Chair, can I just ask, if we still have the reserve of the 15% and there's enough cushion there, even if the real estate tax revenue should go down, which when I heard from our, Mr. Steen, it doesn't even sound like it's going to go down dollar for dollar. It doesn't. So what's the concern if we have that reserve there about not keeping this here? I guess if it's okay, if I can sing loud at Councilman.
There's the same concern, to flip the question the other direction, is there's nothing that stops us after we get past that 6 months. We've allocated the money, we put the $500,000 in there to go back and increase it. So I think the argument works both directions, yeah.
Any other discussion, Councilman Greenspan?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just want my colleagues to, if this thought is not in their mind, the executive's budget did not reduce the Adams Board's budget from one year to another. I believe it's the first time in at least 6 years where there's not been a reduction in the Adams Board funding. What we're effectively doing is, I use this, and I hate to use this word, but we're propping up federal and state subsidies by providing additional funding. I think the direction should be to the federal and state agencies, not to us. We're toting the line here. We're doing what the executive has present a budget that keeps the revenue, or keeps the funding consistent year over year. So there's not support to provide no funding. That obviously has failed. So I would clearly support the reduction that is presented here.
If I may, I'm not going to support a reduction. And I just want to state we're propping people up. We're not propping other people's budgets up. People are totally suffering right now, and we have a reserve, and we have the funds that are earmarked for Health and Human Service. So when I hear propping up the government, I'm helping people.
Council President Conley.
I just want to echo something Mr. Jones pointed out a few minutes ago, that we keep using this term reserve, but these are funds that were allocated by the voters for Health and Human Services, and they weren't used. And so somebody puts them in this account, and we just want to use them for the same thing. We're not drawing down on something that wasn't allocated for this purpose. I mean, I don't understand. We've really got hung up on this word reserve when these are money that were voted and applicable for Health and Human Services, and we're just going to use them.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilman Jones and then Sean.
And I feel as we've used the term reserve to describe Health and Human Services and the Public Assistance Fund, it's almost a misnomer. We've created a percentage of reserves for those accounts, but the accounts themselves aren't necessarily a reserve. And there is need, and we're here to meet that need. If the Cleveland Cavaliers or the NBA never played a game this season, those dollars wouldn't and couldn't come from the Health and Human Service levy. It would be a responsibility of the general fund to meet those things. We keep a 30% reserve in that fund to meet those possibilities. The Health and Human Service dollars are dedicated to the things we've been discussing, and we should use them and use them for what they were, what the people voted for us to use them for.
Councilman Tron.
Yep. By supporting the administration on this point, it is not a reduction. It will be a net increase of $500,000 over what was submitted on the original budget. So there's not a reduction, even though this language is talking about a reduction of an amendment that was put forth. There is still an increase over what was budgeted. There's no reduction whatsoever. It is an increase, and when you look at what suggestions were put forth, only 2 people suggested increasing it above that $500,000 when they came forward. So by supporting this, you are actually ensuring that the $500,000 stays in there as an increase. The risk is that by voting against it, that you potentially put that at risk.
Councilman Greenspan, then Brady.
Yeah, thank you. The discussion of a reserve is a great one to have, and we have come together and established a 15% reserve for this. And in normal circumstances, where you don't have some extraordinary, or as Councilman Mill refers to it, revenue threats. We've got revenue threats out there, 2 of them that will impact this area, and that's why I think it's prudent that we try to reserve above that 15% as much as possible. If the Adams Board was seeing a reduction, look, nobody here is heartless and wants to not fund Health and Human Services. But if we fund it to the point, to the benefit of today at the detriment of tomorrow, which is a concern I have with spending, with some of these additional spending issues. The Adams Board is going to have bigger issues in 2013 and 2014 and beyond. I think 2013 is going to be a challenge across the board for Health and Human Services, because that's one of the key areas coming out of Washington that they said would see immediate budget cuts is in Health and Human and Social Services. We need to be prepared to be able to meet that challenge. They're not, from our perspective, providing any less services from the money we give them from 11 to 12. And that's why I stand on the position of maintaining that reserve and trying to utilize it as little as possible, if at all.
Councilman Brady.
Thank you, Mr.
Then
Chairman. Well, in terms of predicting the worst, I believe that the councilman predicted the basketball season was dead just a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, there are more than 2 council persons supporting this legislation, or it wouldn't be in front of us in the first place. And I'd just like to remind members, and with all due respect, and I do respect them, and I know you're not heartless, that those of us who spent time on the Health and Human Services Committee for a year and have been dealing with these issues very intensely for a very, very long time have come to a different conclusion. Not much, a slight conclusion. And in fact, what I forwarded and was supported by others was only a small amount of what was asked for, only a small amount of what I wanted to ask for. And so I think this is a modest and very wise addition to the budget. We have to take care of the people of Cuyahoga County as best we can, regardless of what other decisions are made by other levels of government.
Councilman Germain, then Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I voted for the deferment because that was giving the full $1.5 million and $750,000 in 2013. We know that treatment works, and if we don't fund it, I know this is not enough. I mean, Mr. Dennehan wanted $25 million. This is a Band-Aid, but this is not. This is the people's money. The people voted for the Health and Human Services to help those in need for health and human services. So I'm going to be voting no to reduce the subsidy by $1,250,000 because what I want to vote for is full funding. I would have hoped it was pretty close on the deferment, but I think as long as we're not going below the 15%, if we treat the people now, we won't have as big a problem, hopefully not as big a problem in 2013 and forward.
Councilman Rogers.
I just, Mr. Germana basically said what I wanted to say. I was just reminding folks that the testimony that we heard was that the actual need was an additional $25 million. So this is essentially a drop in the bucket. And I also wanted to highlight that when you flat fund an organization from year to year, it actually works as a cut because all your other expenses go up and you're getting the same amount of money. So, when you flat fund someone from year to year, you're actually reducing the amount of services that they can provide. I just wanted to add that in, and I will be not supporting the reduction.
Any other discussion? Councilman Gallagher.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. There is no question whatsoever that we are propping up and filling holes for the federal government and the state government. That was testified to here in front of council. And out of this money, I think Mr. Dennehan has guaranteed 400 and some to Rosary Hall, and I don't know how much to St. Malachy's because they were here asking also. So a good portion of this, if not half of this, is going to direct programs that were cut by the federal and state government. So to say that we're not filling holes is just, is not accurate because that's what it was testified to. We all know the problems, and I don't know the answer. But I do know that in 2013, if everything holds serve, and it's not a prediction. We're looking at some very serious problems, and I would certainly hope that we have reserve dollars. And I really wish we had that 2015 in an ordinance form, because it would certainly change my opinion on my vote right now. But we don't have that yet. So until we have that, I'm going to unfortunately not be supporting these things.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair, I just want to say that I responded to the statement that we're propping up the state and federal government. That's not what we're doing. I mean, the fact is there are holes and they need to be filled, and that's why we have a health and human service budget. It's just a question of where our where we want to put the money.
But
And
Mr. Chair, I would respectfully say that if that's the case, then let's put on the ballot the Cuyahoga County voters, taxpayers, are going to fill federal and state holes. It wouldn't get 3 votes. And that's my great concern, is that people are going to look at this and say, hey, we're propping this up or we're filling these holes. And it was testified to, we are. And that's a great concern to me.
Mr. Chair, I think we're representing our districts, and I think I'd get 3 votes from District 11 to care for the needy people of my district. So.
Okay. We've heard the discussion, and everybody supports mental health services. It's only a question of whether the number is going to be $1 million higher or lower, and 250,000 in 13. If you vote yes, you're setting it at the lower number, which reduces it by 1 million in 2012 and 250,000 in 2013, but noting that that is still $500,000 per year above the level that was in the administration proposal, which represented flat funding. If you vote no, you're for setting it at the level that's in the current resolution, which is higher by those same amounts. The clerk will call the roll.
Calling the roll, Mr. Rogers?
No.
Ms. Simon? No. Mr. Greenspan?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
No.
Mr. Brady? No. Mr. Germana?
No.
Mr. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Schron?
Yes.
Ms. Conwell?
No.
Mr. Jones?
No.
Ms. Conley?
No.
Motion has failed.
3 yea and 8 nay, is that correct? Okay. So that item does not become a part of the resolution, and the Adams Board subsidy remains the same as what we have in the current substitute resolution. We now go on to Children and Family Services, and either Councilman Greenspan or Mike Gallagher could make a motion on this item if you so choose.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
A question first. The executive's recommendation was to delete, is that correct? Mine was to defer.
Yeah, the executive's recommendation is to not include this item in the resolution.
Okay, I will, I'll make a motion to defer. I don't know who will make a motion on behalf of the executive to delete, but I'll make a motion to defer 6 direct staff, $372,000 per year.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to defer the additional staffing for Children and Family Services. Is there any discussion?
Councilman, I know this is a heavy topic, but, you know, I know the executive feels on his point. He strongly recommends not hiring any staff right now due to him laying off so many. But I was actually at an event maybe a week or two ago regarding the foster children, foster care. And the foster care, I was actually one of the celebrity chefs for the Thanksgiving dinner or whatever that they put on for the foster kids. And I was surrounded by a lot of staff there. Now, no one approached me and asked me about anything, but I asked the staff that work directly in this service and in this field, how was caseloads? How are you doing? Everybody had a consensus that they were struggling, that this is a management style technique, that they're telling us they don't need staff, but they do need staff. They do need help. So I just wanted to put that out there, that I did kind of do a little small survey and ask. I don't know if that'll change anyone's views or whatever, but I'm willing to defer it since the executive doesn't want to hire anyone right now, and I agree with Councilman Greenspan that we should defer it, because I know that these offices need additional help. That's all.
Council President Conley.
You know, we have caseworkers here with something like 590 people on their staff, on their caseload. And we are additional 6. I think it'll bring it down to 550 or something. I just don't see the rationale. I think we're being penny wise and pound foolish. These people, whatever we can do in the front end saves these people from being in the criminal justice system or being cared for additionally. I was out at Beachbrook, Ms. Bepler is here, and she was saying that they are in their program, the children stay on average about 30 days. Well, when the caseworkers are so busy that they can't get to that client, then the child ends up staying longer, which costs us more money. So I really think we're being penny wise and pound foolish. 6 additional workers for the number of people that we have on caseloads, to me, is not a lot of people. And we are looking at doing anything on the front end to stop having to fund people for reentry and the jail and for the criminal court system if we can stop them now. I just think that 6 additional people in the great scan of all the services we provide is not a lot of people. I'm opposed to deleting. I think these positions should be funded.
I would like to say that I strongly agree with the council president on this item. It's something like only about a quarter of what the department requested in their decision item request. It's a very modest recognition of the need for additional staffing, and I think it's important that part of the budgeting process is to determine what we feel is the proper level for personnel within each of the departments, and once we do that, it's the administration's prerogative as to exactly who they hire and what positions they fill. They have flexibility on that, but there's some times where we may feel that the administration really needs more staff than what they've got, and I think in these next 2 items, these are the 2 that we identified that there really seems to be a serious problem, and if we defer it, then this shortage of staff is going to continue for at least 6 months until we can review it mid-year, and I don't support doing that. I think we should authorize it, and we may have to work hard to get the administration to actually put on staff up to these levels. But I think that as a budget planning measure, we should give them the authorization to do so. So I'm a no on the motion. Councilman Brady.
I'm also a no on the motion, and I'd like to just amplify some of the comments that the chairman's made. We had these decision items, and in this case, the decision item was asking for 20 more people, and I know this is the first time we've gone through a budget process that is us and the administration, but I find it fascinating that what's considered decision items are considered not to be decided or not up for decision. If the executive is going to oppose every single item that's called a decision item, then I don't know why it's called a decision item. But maybe we'll take that up on during our next budget process 2 years from now. I'm really concerned as someone who chairs the Health and Human Services Committee and someone who's spent a lot of time dealing with this, and not just in the abstract, but in the reality of the programs that these decisions are not made in a way that's actually evaluating the services of the delivery of services. The Cuyahoga County has a pretty good reputation compared to a lot of other places in this country and even in this state in these issues. And I think it would be ironic and a terrible thing if this new government were to do less and possibly shred the social service network in this county in some kind of a mission to just lower the body count of people who work for Cuyahoga County.
Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I also do not support the deletion of this particular item. I think back to before I even ran for office, I read in the Plain Dealer how the cut in budget of Children and Family Services led to a change in policies that actually left a tear in our social safety net, and a child's life was lost as a result of that. Dollars were saved. Councilwoman Sonny Simon said, we are a co-equal branch with the executive. He has put forth his vision, but we also have to leave our imprint on this budget as a council and as a whole. And I support this item, and I encourage my colleagues to support the maintaining of these service staff workers also.
Councilman Germana.
Mr. Chairman, this might sound a little convoluted, but I agree that Children and Family Services and probably Employment and Family Services need additional staff. At the same time, if you look at things from the perspective of the executive, I mean, he has had to make tough decisions letting people go, even as current as today, the 5 people in the Treasury Department that are going to go. And as a matter of principle, he is the one, the administration has got the power to hire or not hire, not the council. We're there to fund in this particular case and in the next one. I'm voting for deferral because hopefully 7 months from now, the executive may change his mind. But I'm going to be voting yes to defer in support of the executive.
Okay, anything else? Councilman Rogers.
Just coincidentally, I received a phone call this morning from the father of a social worker who works for the county, and he informed me he was pleading for help, and essentially told me that his daughter is resigning effective Friday because of the stress of the job, the extensive caseload that she's been trying to manage. And I just wanted to say that as we're talking about this, and literally just this morning I got that phone call, and the guy was just kind of pleading for additional help for his daughter in the work that she does on a daily basis. So I just I really feel I have an understanding, even though I'm not on Health and Human Services Committee, I understand the plight of what our social workers are going through. But there is still that difficulty there that it is the administration that is responsible for hiring and firing. I hope that, if this passes, or actually if it fails, that it's, it's sending a message of where we see a need, where as a council, where we see a priority area as a council, but ultimately, it's going to be up to the executive to make that call.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Ms. Simon.
I'm not going to support an amendment to reduce these staffers on either one, items 2 or 3. And the kids, we have people's lives at stake. And it's not going to be, as much as I can prevent a child getting harmed or killed, if this is going to make a difference, then I think this is worthwhile. And I can tell you from working in domestic relations law for years and years of how long it takes for staff people to get back, and it's because they're backlogged. I mean, I can't get calls back, we're waiting. In the executive's position is valid, that let's wait to see if the new management or the director can make a difference with the incentive program she has in place. But I think 6 people in each department is reasonable, all things considered.
Okay, any other discussion? Councilman Schwan.
I will be supporting the executive because he was charged with running these areas and working with his staff and working with the senior management and working with the people to put this together. And as a result, but for us second guessing on how he believes it's the most effective way to run these and for his staff to run it. Obviously, we heard from on the Adams board just recently that they should have another 25 million, and we didn't even come close to recommending that recommendation. And so as a result, here we are going to be second guessing what the administration believes is the proper way to be running these departments. So I'm going to support the administration on these, as I earlier indicated.
Okay. I'm going to ask the clerk to call the roll, and in this vote, if you vote yes, you're voting to defer the allocation for the additional staff for children and family services and put it into a reserve account to be reviewed at mid-year. And if you're voting no, you're voting to appropriate this funding and keep the resolution as it is.
Mr. Rogers?
No.
Ms. Simon?
No.
Mr. Greenspan?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
No.
Mr. Brady?
No.
Mr. Germana?
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher? Yes. Mr. Schron?
Yes?
Ms. Conwell? No. Mr. Jones?
No.
And Ms. Conley?
No.
The motion fails 4-7.
Okay, so the Children and Family Services item remains as is. And we go on to item number 3.
Mr. Chair, how do we want to handle Port of Order? I'm not even sure. The executive has a recommendation to delete. Do we need to vote on his amendment if there's nobody to present it?
The question I would ask is, obviously, it would take more votes to pass a motion to delete than voted for the deferral. And so I would ask if there's anyone who did not support the motion to defer, who would support a motion to delete, and if so, they should make that motion. Otherwise, we would assume that that motion would not be approved. Hearing none, we'll proceed on to item number 3.
Okay. Item number 3, I make a motion to defer six direct service staff, $290,000 per year.
There's a motion and a second to defer the Employment and Family Services allocation of $290,000 per year. Any discussion? Okay, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rogers?
No.
Ms. Simon?
No.
Mr. Greenspan?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
No.
Mr. Brady?
No.
Mr. Germana?
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Schron?
Yes.
Ms. Conwell?
No.
Mr. Jones?
No.
Ms. Conley?
No.
Motion fails 4-7.
Okay. Item number 4, Early Childhood Invest in Children, and there's 2 items in here. There's the Help Me Grow funding and the Universal Pre-K, the second one being supported by the administration, but the first one not being so supported. The second one, the Universal Pre-K, is supported by the administration. And the first one is not. Do we have a motion regarding Help Me Grow?
Mr.
Chair. Make a motion to defer additional $600,000 per year for Help Me Grow.
Second.
Any discussion?
This is supported to delete, even though it's, the motion here is defer by the executive. That's what I was referring to, that the executive actually is referring to deleting this $600,000.
That's correct.
Yes,
The motion on the floor is to defer.
that's correct.
Is to defer the 600,000. Any discussion?
I'll just make a general comment. Just on these items and the expectation, just so it's clear, the expectation or the expectation I have in deferral is not to say that I, and I don't want to speak for those who would support a deferral, don't believe that these programs provide valuable services. That's not it at all. It's just merely from a fiscal prudence perspective to wait 6 months into next year, take a look around and see where we stand from a financial perspective. So that's why I stand by the deferral as opposed to a deletion.
Okay. Any comment? Councilman Rogers?
I can't recall. I can't recall what the additional $600,000 was for.
The additional $600,000 is for the Help Me Grow program, which would enable additional young children to be helped with medical visits, counseling, programs to help ensure that they get a good early start in life. This is a program that suffered serious reductions in the state budget cuts, and so the hope is to provide some additional funding to help make sure that children who need it get served.
Mr. Chair? Just to elaborate a little bit, it's exactly that, and they're able to come in right at the beginning for to evaluate what services are needed, if any, and hurry up and get them into other programs if there's a need for the mom or the child.
Councilman Jones?
I really just wanted to make a comment. The more I hear this word defer, the less I like it. I'm starting to dislike that word. I just keep imagining if we're in support of it, but we defer it, and we're really saying that we do support it, but once we know the dollar amounts, isn't there a way to say, well, we do support it, and 6 months later, if the financial numbers are triggered, it automatically is a passage, or is it an opportunity to come back 6 months later and say, well, now I don't support it for another reason? Can a deferral really say, if it's passed, it's automatically triggered when the financial concerns are met? Possible way to. Is the financial. I mean, we're well above the 15% reserves. We are not endangering the Health and Human Service levy account dollars. So,
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
and the people have said this is their money. This is what it's for. I'm not.
I can address that
if getting it.
If the council was to itemize a number of items to defer, and then within the deferral list prioritize those items, and as those funds in the 7th month, in July 1, as they become available, would automatically trigger the release, that's how it could work. So let's say that this one is $600,000 and it was determined to be the number one priority, and $601,000 became available, then it would automatically trigger the disbursement of those funds. That's how it could work, but it doesn't look like we're going down that path. So you asked how it could, that's the mechanism.
None of them passed, so it's not, it's a moot point. I mean.
No, that's how you prioritize spending.
Anybody else? Okay, call the roll.
Mr. Rogers?
No.
Ms. Simon? Mr. Greenspan?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
No.
Mr. Brady? No. Mr. Germana? Yes. Mr. Gallagher? Mr. Schron?
Yes.
Ms. Conwell? No. Mr. Jones?
No.
Ms. Conley?
No.
Okay, the motion fails 4-7.
My colleagues, we've been going through a number of items regarding the human services, and we're at a little different place than the administration on some of the items, and they've urged caution, and in looking at this Help Me Grow item, we were pretty aggressive in putting forward the $600,000 number, and as important as these services are, and I think every dollar we spend on this saves us multiple dollars down the road, but in the direction of prudence, I'm going to make a motion that we reset the Help Me Grow at an increase of $400,000 rather than $600,000. I think it's an area where we could be a little bit less aggressive and show some consideration of what the administration is requesting. So I'd see if there's a second on that motion.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? Clerk will call the roll. A yes votes resets Help Me Grow at $400,000 per year. A no vote keeps it at $600,000.
So in other words, you would be deleting an additional $400,000?
No, we would delete $200,000, and that we would it would remain at $400,000 above the original budget as opposed to $600,000.
Thank you. Okay, calling the roll for that amendment. Mr. Rogers?
Yes.
Ms. Simon? Yes. Mr. Greenspan?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Germana?
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Schron?
Yes.
Ms. Conwell?
No.
Mr. Jones?
Actually, I have one question. Does this impact the $800,000 for the universal pre-K?
Not.
That's a
Just
separate
look-
item.
just-
Totally separate item.
Just look at me for now.
Okay, yes. Oh, I'm watching. I got my eye on you, Dave. I definitely got to watch you.
Mr. Jones, how do you vote?
I vote in support of the $200,000 reduction. Who's that?
And Ms. Conley?
Yes.
The ayes have it, 10-1.
Okay, that item is incorporated, and the increase in funding for Help Me Grow is reset at $400,000 per year rather than $600,000. The next item is the question of the $800,000 per year for universal pre-K. It's an item that the administration supports. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, let me ask the chair a question. It appears that we're going down the same philosophical path on all of these issues. Would it be advisable to have a consent agenda concept on all of these with the expectation? Okay, very good. I make a motion to defer the additional $800,000 per year for the universal pre-K program. Defer.
Okay, the motion is to defer the $800,000 for universal pre-K. Any discussion? Call the roll.
Mr. Rogers?
No.
Ms. Simon? No. Mr. Greenspan?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
No.
Mr. Brady?
No.
Mr. Germana?
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Schron?
Yes.
Ms. Conwell?
No.
Mr. Jones?
No.
Ms. Conley?
No.
Motion fails 4-7.
Okay, now on homeless services, there are 3 items. So I would ask whether anybody wants to make a motion regarding any of them.
The motion's to stand as written, or do we need, you want motions on each? I'll make a motion. Motion to defer $25,000 per year to the Manitoba project.
Okay, the motion is to defer. Council President Connolly.
Do we need a second?
Oh, we do need a second. Is there a second on that motion? Hearing none, that motion dies for lack of a second.
Okay. Mr. Chair, make a motion to defer $40,000 per year for overflow funding for women's shelter.
Is there a second? No second? Okay, that dies.
Mr. Chair, make a motion to defer $300,000 per year for rehousing program.
Okay, we have a second on that item. Okay, any discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Roll for that item. Mr. Rogers? No. Ms. Simon?
No.
Mr. Greenspan? Yes. Mr. Miller?
No.
Mr. Brady?
No.
Mr. Germana?
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher? Yes. Mr. Schron?
Yes.
Ms. Conwell?
No.
Mr. Jones?
No.
And Ms. Conley?
No.
Motion fails 4-7.
Okay, item number 6.
Motion to defer $200,000 per year for residential treatment contract.
Is there a second? I don't hear a second. Okay, that one.
Okay. Mr. Chair, motion to defer $100,000 per year for diversion program.
Is there a second?
I would second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Simon?
Go ahead, Ms. Stein. Go ahead.
I'll defer to the president.
I just think that these programs are so vital that one of the reasons that we have more children from the inner city over the juvenile court system is because then the suburban children get involved in diversion programs and they never end up in the criminal justice system. And this is just a drop in the bucket. These diversion programs for juvenile court are wonderful. I think there's many volunteers. I think Mr. McCloof, I think, is a volunteer, and other people are volunteers where they go in, they work individually with these kids. This is just, I mean, to drop this program would actually be criminal. I mean, we have to keep this small amount of money for these. And once again, we'd be being penny wise and pound foolish because we just see these people back in the juvenile court system and eventually in the adult court system and back in reentry and all the other programs.
Okay, Ms. Simon?
Chair, I agree. I did serve as a volunteer juvenile magistrate early on and saw the effectiveness of keeping kids outside of the system. I mean, this is the one chance they have to stay clean. It brings the parents in, which is essential. I mean, this is what we all say, bring the parents in. This is where you do it. I understand the concern of my colleagues and of the juvenile court history of some suspect spending with regard to the Juvenile Justice Center, some of the IT issues. So I totally get that. And what I plan to do within a couple months of next year is to bring in the administration from juvenile court into justice affairs to really give us an accounting of how, I mean, obviously it's restricted for this program. They have to use it for diversion. And I want to see how it's happening. So I understand the concern.
Councilman Gallagher?
Chairman, I couldn't agree more with my colleagues, but it's unfortunate that we have an administration and judges who are who really are spendthrifts over there. They have their own personal gym and gym equipment. Nothing happened with that. The opulence of that building that we were handed that, and that's unfortunate, but when you have Viking refrigerators and ranges, outrageous. And then to find out that they bought robes for everybody. How many hearing officers? Hearing officers run around in black robes as if the taxpayers voted for them to be judges. I mean, it's just ridiculous. those items alone are well over $100,000, and it would be really nice to see an administration in these courts start to take recognition of what's important within their budgets. And I think this would be an opportune time for us to send a message to them. You want to talk about sending a message? This is the time to do it. And tell them, take that $100,000, sell your gym equipment, have your own people buy the robes, and put it into these kids. It's just outrageous. It's something that taxpayers just absolutely, no matter where you're at, what district you're in, find absolutely egregious. I would suggest that we just absolutely delete this.
Mr. Chair? Oh, I'm sorry, I have to respond. I don't disagree with that at all, but unfortunately, the kids are going to suffer. I mean, that's the end of the day. We can tell them we're going to take this
I
bed
agree.
now, give it to them, and the kids aren't going to see it.
I agree.
In terms of that gym equipment, I wanted it sold.
I agree.
It just, I did. I still
Councilwoman,
want it
at the
sold.
hands
but I'm
of
not,
the justices themselves who are making these decisions. This has got to stop. And we have the power to do that.
Well, not with this program. We don't. It's not going to change their practice by taking away this money. We just have to make sure the money's spent wisely, and that's what I intend to do, as much as I can, through Justice Affairs.
Ms. Conwell.
I just want to say I agree with Gallagher, but I have to agree with Sonny, not at the expense of kids. I mean, the kids are going to be the ones that suffer. And in the suburbs, most of them are, sent through a diversion program. We need that for the urban population as well. I mean, it's just fair.
There's nothing to say that court can't take $100,000 out of their general budget and fund this themselves. If you're kidding yourself if you think this is going to hurt the kids. Lay it on them. Where's the plain dealer? Right about that. They're listening.
Mr. Chair, they won't spend it on the kids. That's the problem.
And that's
Even if we force their
and
hands, they won't.
unfortunately, that's
They
my
won't.
point. They won't, and they need to.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Mr.
Okay, Councilman Gallagher.
Germana,
I'm sorry.
even though we're agreeing on many things today, Mr. Gallagher, this is not about judges. Being a father of four and a grandfather of four, some people cannot imagine that kids aren't perfect. But, kids make mistakes, and I support the diversion program 100%. And I agree with you about the judges, but this is not about the judges. This is about juvenile diversion.
Okay, anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Calling the roll, Mr. Rogers. No. Ms. Simon? No. Mr. Greenspan?
Yes.
Mr. Miller? No. Mr. Brady?
No.
Mr. Germana? No. Mr. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Schron?
Yes.
Ms. Conwell? No. Mr. Jones?
No.
Ms. Conley?
No.
The motion fails 3-8.
Okay, that motion does not become a part of the resolution, and we go to item number 8.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to defer the reentry entrepreneurship program. I'm assuming that's $150,000 in
Correct.
2012 and $250,000 in 2013.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Council President Connolly.
Well, once again, these reentry programs have proven themselves beyond a reasonable doubt to be successful. The amount of money it costs us per day in the county jail or per year in the state penal institution is compared to this minuscule amount that we're spending for reentry. I think some of you had an opportunity to go up to the reentry program up on 55th Street, the Oriana House program, to see the success stories they have there. The people that I run into in the Justice Center that were formerly in my court that have gone through these programs, these are just too important. I mean, to spend this money is going to save us on our jail cost, our jail overtime, our criminal justice system. This is not a lot of money to spend for reentry, and we have the largest population of people coming back into our county. We cannot delete these programs. These are programs that keep people off of methadone, off of all kinds of other drug services, keep people from breaking into your house. These are vital. We really have to keep these programs.
I just want to add that the practice of not hiring people because they have things in their record just isn't going to go away. If anything, it's getting worse because the capabilities for keeping records and knowing what's in everybody's record is just improving all the time. And even when people get their records expunged, you can still find out what was in their record on the internet. And so what I'm saying is that the idea of entrepreneurship has to be part of our approach to reentry. We have to help people who are able to. If somebody isn't going to hire them because they have a record, well, then they start their own business, this is going to work for people, and it has to be part of the program. So I support the item. Yes.
I think this particular program speaks to our charter mandate to help grow this economy, to add to the function of our social services. And we have helped those in the foster care. I've spoken to so many constituents who have started their own businesses, but find out that they were once in the foster care system that our tax dollars have gone to. They've been abused and neglected, and then have gone on to start their own businesses. The Human Services is an economic engine, and the Justice Services dollars of incarceration have been dollars we've had to pay, but now that they are restored citizens and they pay their debt to society, we've battled and we continue to battle to help them find employment and issues like banning the box. But there is no barrier to selling a hamburger or providing a product or service. So we have to give these restored citizens a lane to operate on and see this as a pipeline from destructive activity to constructive opportunities. And this is what has been missing over the last 30 plus years as we've used incarceration as a solution. This $150,000 is simply a drop in the bucket towards a policy that can help restore this county.
Any other discussion? Mr. Chairman? Councilman Gallagher.
And while I'm becoming more comfortable with the problems that these folks are having, there are two things that I think that we need to do in the future, and the future starts tomorrow, is when you're sending 20% of the prisoners to state penitentiary, 27 are coming back. That's a problem. That's a problem. And the second thing is when our youngsters that do everything right, regardless of where they come from, go to college and don't come home. And they don't come home because of what we don't have to offer them. So what we offer these folks, minimally, we should offer to those kids that are coming home from college with degrees and try and encourage them to stay here. You know, it's funny, you do everything right in life, and maybe you're born into circumstances that dictate that. But regardless, you do the right thing, and there's not a nickel of money and not a cent, not a second of time dedicated to keeping you here, and that's what we need to do. I know the executive's starting with the young group, young professionals group. I think we need to start funding that a little more heavily as we fund these folks. Both needed programs in my mind.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Simon.
Economic Development Fund, the million, that's going to go toward retaining and bringing people back. So there you have it.
Dedicated to something like this. Give me an entrepreneurship or that dedicates 150 and 250, and I'm happy.
Why don't we look at that when we're looking
That's what I
at
said, starting
the
tomorrow.
Jack Schron's committee?
Starting tomorrow.
That piece, but it seems to me that's a different discussion, but
Yeah.
It's coming soon. Yes. Any other discussion? Clerk will call the roll. Yeah.
Correct.
Yes is to defer, no is to keep it funded as it is.
Mr. Rogers?
No.
Ms. Simon? No. Mr. Greenspan? Yes. Mr. Miller? No. Mr. Brady? No. Mr. Germana? Yes. Mr. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Schron?
No.
Ms. Conwell? No. Mr. Jones?
No.
Ms. Conley?
No.
The motion is defeated, 3-8.
Okay, I would like to thank all of my colleagues very much for, we're not done, but I want to thank everybody for hanging in and participating in this long process. But now we need a motion to refer the budget resolution as amended to the full council on December 6th for second reading consideration. It's been moved by Councilman Brady and seconded by the council president. Is there any discussion? I would like to just point out a couple of things that this is a budget that is both responsible and compassionate. In a modest way, the council has put its own stamp on the budget process. I would like to review what the differences are between what the administration asked for and where we currently stand. In terms of additional items for human services, we have 6 additional items which total $2,512,000 in 2012 and $1,862,000 in 2013. And we have reductions of $500,000 in 2012 and $1 million in 2013, giving us a net increase of $2,012,000 in 2012 and $862,000 in 2013. In terms of the overall all funds budget of $1.2 billion per year, that amounts to a difference of 0.2 percentage point in 2012 and 0.1 percentage point in 2013. To put that in perspective, that would be like if you needed a new car and you looked at what was out there and you decided on a make and a model and some options that you wanted, and you figured out that you're hoping that you could buy this car for $20,000. And so then you went to the dealer and you found that the dealer had the make and the model that you wanted with the options that you wanted, and you said that I would like to buy this car for $20,000, and the dealer said that I'm not able to sell it to you for $20,000, but I can sell it to you for $20,030. That's what the difference between where the administration is at and where we're at amounts to. I hope that that's a difference that everybody on the council and the administration can find acceptable. In going through these items, we worked with the administration. We sought their input. We made a number of items. The Consumer Affairs Department, the pay equity part of it, the disparity study on each of those items. We amended what we had done to reflect exactly what the administration requested. And on the Help Me Grow program, we made a change in the direction that they advocated. In addition to that, I know of at least 5 amendments that were considered and talked about that the administration would have opposed, but they never got that far. So I think it's a good product. Everybody worked hard. Everybody contributed. I think all or most of us have ideas and suggestions that are included in this product, and so I would ask for every council member's vote to seriously consider voting for this version. I know that there were some differences of opinion on individual items, but I think the overall budget is a very good product, and I ask for your support. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rogers? Ms. Simon?
Yes.
Mr. Greenspan?
No.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Brady? Yes. Mr. Germana?
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher? Yes. Mr. Strawn?
Yes.
Ms. Conwell?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
The proposed 2012-2013 budget is approved and recommended to the full council on December 6th for second reading by a vote of 11-0. Thank you very much, everyone.
And before we close, I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank Mr. Miller for his really hard work. I mean, he spent the whole weekend, and he went above and beyond the call of duty, and I just want to thank him on behalf of the council and also all the citizens of Cuyahoga County.
Thank you very much. Is there any miscellaneous business?
And Mrs. Miller.
Is there anyone who signed in for public comment?
No, Mr. Chairman, there is no one.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.
And we do not have a meeting tomorrow, right? We do not have a meeting. December 6th. Okay.
15 minutes early.
No, but we do, Ellen.
Oh, yeah, 2 o'clock, right?
2 o'clock.
Okay. Yeah, I take my mother to the doctor.
And 11 o'clock. Dog judging. Tomorrow, 11 o'clock, dog judging.
I'd have been listening.